I got the chance to play the new campaign of Call of Duty Vanguard. Activision sent me an early copy and asked me to review the game, so here we go. Call of Duty Vanguard is set in World War II and follows the stories of a US Marine on the Pacific Front and a Russian soldier on the European Eastern Front. The stories focus less on the individual and more on the absolute horrors of war. This game is not afraid to show the brutal side of war, and embraces the history of what actually happened rather than try to hide and censor it. On the Pacific Front, you see the enemies set booby traps and ambushes while snipers hide in the trees. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the German army attacks you with superior weaponry and tanks. The game does a great job of keeping the separate storylines fresh and try to avoid any repetitives in their objectives. The weapons used during the campaign are a good example. They are essentially faction locked, meaning you won't find an MP40 in the Pacific or a Thompson on the Eastern Front. I've noticed that these games are also used in the correct time period. For example, one mission set in 1942 had the German army equipped with only MP40s and MG42s. We won't see the STG-44 or the Gewehr until later in the game in 1945. It seems the developers really did their research in trying to make all the guns grounded in realism. Well, almost all the guns. As for the environment, it helps create a bleak and depressing mood fitting for World War II. Decimating beautiful tropic islands and battling through destroyed buildings gives you a sense of how destructive this war really was. The music also goes hand in hand with the brutal gameplay. You're blasting limbs off of enemies, executing helpless soldiers, burning enemies alive, mag dumping with a light machine gun, razing the German countryside, using an anti-aircraft weapon against ground vehicles and infantry. What in God's name is a Geneva Convention? The Second World War was the most brutal war of human history. Everyone alive today needs to know of the atrocities committed on all sides of the war. If we have to teach our youth with video games, then I highly recommend Call of Duty World at War. Yes, this is actually a game over a decade old, and it's still the superior World War II game. Seriously, just skip Vanguard. They're essentially trying to rewrite history to suit their own personal standards.